Winter is a time of deep, deep reflection. It helps to slow us down so we can go inward and really evaluate the areas of our lives and what we desire to feel more full, what we desire to blossom in the spring and then nurture in the summer, right? The seasons allow us to follow those teachings and remember that there's always going to be this journey of coming back to self, bringing things outward, coming back to self and bringing things outward. It's a kind of a balance. And since where I live, I'm in the season of winter, I feel that deep, deep need for reflection. And snow has been an element of winter that is definitely calling me to slow down. When I step outside and it is snowing, all I can feel is just this contentment inside, the quietness of the earth, the stillness, and the ability to listen deeper to my body. So in today's episode, I'd like to explore the teachings of snow and how these teachings can invite in wonder, awe, and ultimately deep silence and listening to our bodies and to the outer world. Welcome to this podcast. I'm Jenny, and I'm going to say, a nature preschool teacher. I no longer teach in the classroom, but I still feel that is my title. I don't know why. I haven't found another one that feels so grounded inside of me. And here on this podcast, we explore the teachings of land that I gathered during my time as a nature preschool teacher, and I'm ready to share them with you to blossom them forward so we can bring these teachings of land into our everyday lives and apply them to either caregiving for others, caregiving for ourselves, or caregiving again for land, whatever way we want to apply them. Sometimes we focus on caregiving for others, and other times on this podcast, we really just focus on listening to our bodies. And on today's episode with Snow, we're going to kind of focus on listening to our bodies, and we'll see if we come to teachings, because I always feel like for me, it's interwoven, teaching and being with children, and the things that I'm learning in my inner world also apply with when I'm with children. So before we begin, winter is a time that definitely impacts our shoulders. So I'd like us to take a moment to really tune in to our shoulders. So if it feels good to you and you're in a space that you can, I invite you to close down your eyes and tune into the shoulders. Just for a second, just feel for the shoulders, maybe rubbing your hands over your shoulders. And see what you feel, what sensations come up. Taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Is there tightness in the front of your body? Do you feel warm or cold? Any tingling? Oftentimes we may forget to feel into our bodies when we live in a world that is so fast-paced. So winter allows us to really take that time to tune inward and listen. Taking one more breath in, and then sigh it out. Now feel back into your shoulders again. How do they feel different from just taking that one simple thing to feel? Oftentimes in the winter, we bring our shoulders up. We can constrict ourselves, and it might try to take a breath when your shoulders are up. It's like, it's shallower, right? And when our shoulders are back and our chest is out, and you take a breath, there's so much more space. I want you to take a moment to really consider that. Maybe practicing bringing your shoulders up, trying to breathe deep into your belly, and then bringing them back down. Ooh, I even noticed, like, from doing that last breath, like how my shoulders were still up a little bit. Our shoulders tell us a lot of stuff. They give us a lot of information. And if we're feeling soreness in our shoulders, that means we're carrying something, carrying some weight that either was given to us or that we're taking on. So it's always nice to just hold space for them and never try to change how they feel, right? But just be with it. I think that's the growth area of everything when we think about our shoulders and our body and our feelings and our thoughts, is just observing them. Much like when we're in the classroom, right? Or with children at home, wherever you might be, or with just people, your dog, whatever. It's the observation skills of just watching that allow us to see more further into what's happening in ourselves and in others. I know for myself in the winter and in the snow, what it's kind of stirring up for me is this need to fix. And I think I've spoken on that in a previous episode, but this need to fix and problem solve, right? Sometimes when I'm with children, I might feel this feeling of like protection, and my shoulders might go forward or up. And that is information for me. Because when my shoulders are up, I am not as open to observing, not as open to like seeing exactly what's happening. So when I take a step back and I put my shoulders back and I ground in my feet, I can observe the child in a more clear-headed way. I'm not trying to problem solve their feelings or what's going on. I can just see everything that's out in front of me and observe it. And what I think is really cool is when we start to hold space for ourselves and really like do some observing skills for like how our body is being held, what emotions are coming forward when we're watching children, we can start to see things and notice that when I might be feeling, or when we might be feeling anxious or energy rising, or like, you know, how anxiety, at least for me, manifests in like this like sprinkly sensation where I can't like fully see, like there's just too much happening. And then when I'm like that with children, it's like the situation in front of me that I'm observing is just chaotic, and I feel like I can't hold everything in, right? Like I can't hold everything, so I try to solve that issue that I'm seeing in front of me, because when I solve that, I can figure out myself. When in actuality, if I took the time to actually figure out what was happening here, why that's stirring up anxiety, take a breath, connect back to my body, how that changes the energy between the children, or like what I'm noticing, right? Because when I'm in my body, when I'm not trying to change anything on the outside world, but solely focusing on myself and changing what's happening here, I can show up in a totally different way in the classroom with children. If I'm nannying, if I'm babysitting, if I'm hanging out with my nephew, I can change the way that feels. And I notice that when I start to tune inward, the lessons I hear are slow down. We don't need to rush. We don't need to figure this out right now. We don't need a problem solve for them. We don't need to solve why they are doing exactly this right here, right now, so then I can feel better. I can let this go. I can just feel better. Right? I think that when we let that energy go, how much more open we feel. And the snow teaches us to listen to the quiet way that the wind comes through the trees, to the simplicity of the snowflakes falling to the earth, the mesmerizing way they shape and move and flow, and maybe even when we're lucky, when it falls on us and we can take a view. These are all things that snow can invite into our lives, right? That slowness, that grounding, that's coming back to ourselves in order to bring whatever energy we want to bring forward into the world. So if we're trying so hard to control and bringing our shoulders forward and just trying to figure it all out, we're holding too tightly, and it can't move us the way that we want. And I'm learning that snow can teach me to unlock this area, my heart. Snow can teach me to follow what's inside, not what's up here. What's inside, what really wants to move through me. I know that oftentimes when we have been living from a place of controlling and trying to figure it out and problem solve, and we might not be open to anything, right? Because we're just so closed off. We're so scrunched up. Energy can't move through us. We act in different ways than when we're open. We act in ways that maybe is reactive, like we might see with children, right? When they are so out of regulation and they just do things that are like, whoa, what, how, huh? We do that too. We can do that too. We might yell at someone that's crossing the sidewalk when we're driving, and we might be like, why are you crossing the sidewalk? Like, I'm driving, blah, 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 right? And we get in this habit of reacting instead of actually grounding and listening and observing. And this can happen. And also, how when we take that time to go inward, to slow down, to take the teachings of snow and observe and listen, even if it's just for again, 10 seconds, how that can help grow this practice of tuning into our bodies and what truly wants to move out of us, right? That's something I'm trying to really, really follow for myself this year, is what truly wants to move out of me. Not what I think I should be doing, but what truly wants to come out, what wants to be shared, what wants to be harvested, what wants to be fruit for others, fruit for myself. So taking that time to slow down and get out of our own way allows us to listen to really what wants to move us. And I keep on hearing, even in the classroom, right, with children, it's that same way. When we can get out of their way in different ways, right, and we can let them struggle, let them problem solve themselves, how beautiful that is. Because if we always feel like we're needed, we always feel like we have to be right there with them. They might have a question, or they might not know how to stick up for themselves when they're learning how to set a boundary. And we feel that we need to be there to give them those words, tell them to stop, whatever it might be. It's how is that impacting their learning? right? Because if someone always is stepping in, like let's just take a moment and like take ourselves, right? If somebody is stepping in all the time on our job and telling us how to do something, micromanaging, telling us to like say sorry, telling us to give that back to them, like they weren't finished with that computer even though you are on it now, whatever it might be, how does that feel? Like even me saying that right now, that makes me feel like, ugh, like gross, like no. And when we're in the classroom or when we're caregiving for children and we put all of these shoulds on them, you should be sharing, you should say sorry, you should do this, you should do that. Well, how do you think that is impacting them? If that impacted us in a certain way, if somebody did that to us, how is that impacting them? Right? So how can we take this teaching of slowing down, observing, being curious, listening? How can we take those teachings and bring those into that situation, right? Let's say like two children are like arguing over a toy. If we step in and we tell them exactly what to do, we give them the script, and granted, like I think there's a time and place for that. I'm not saying no, but if we jump right in and problem solve for them, we can be impacting like their abilities to feel like anger or like frustration because they're not being heard, they're not being seen, they're being told what to do. But we might be misinterpreting what's happening too. And children learn through trial and error, just like we as humans do. So I think there's many different ways that we can stop before entering a conflict, entering something and putting our words to whatever's going on or trying to problem solve and fix things. And we can decide to open and just take 3 seconds to observe. Take 3 seconds to observe our inner workings. How do I feel? Am I feeling grounded? What sensations am I feeling in my body? Before then jumping in. And what am I bringing in to this circle between maybe two children that are experiencing a boundary crossing, right? There's always space to take, space to make, space to create. So then we can nurture this and we can show up in a way that feels right for us. And something that just like forward into my brain is, I think the thing that happens for me is that I hear these things, right? And I'm like, yes, like this all feels good. And then when I go back into a situation where I get to practice these teachings, I might get in the way of myself of being like, it has to be perfect. I need to say this perfectly. I need to act perfectly. I need to kind of like, I think I feel like I change the way I disconnect, basically, is what I'm trying to say, is when I'm striving for perfection, I totally disconnect from my body. And that's information. That's information for me to take back and be like, wow, striving for perfection makes me disconnect. When I disconnect, I might be saying the right things, I might be acting the right way, but I don't feel my body. I don't feel into myself. So again, information to observe, information to listen deeply to myself and figure out how I can show up in an authentic way that allows me to observe my inner workings in order to then observe my external worlds and see where I fit in, where the need is, and if there is a need. Maybe the need is just super simple and I just need to listen. I don't need to fix, I don't need to change, I don't need to give advice. I just need to listen. Ask some questions. And just feel. This life is here for observing, wonder, awe, joy. There's so much beauty, and there's also so much evil. And there's always choice. In some cases. I have a hard time with that. I definitely live in the gray. I don't see black and white. I'm like, what? This? And I think it's what we do, how we engage in our community, how we reflect, how we take these teachings of Earth and apply them to what we want to bring forward, to how we want to change this world, hopefully for the better. For the better for the Earth, for the better for the next generation, and for the better for ourselves. I truly believe that. So, I guess my invitation for you until we meet again is hold some space for yourself. Observe that inner working and observe what comes forward when you see something that you feel stressed about, anxious about, nervous about, and see how that changes the way you approach it, and then also how it changes the way you approach it when you are open. Lots of love, and I'll see you next time.